Welcome, dear listener, to a journey through the mists of time in the fantastical world of Final Fantasy VIII. In this journey, we'll explore the rich lore and fascinating backstories that set the stage for the epic tale to come. So get cozy, settle in, and let the dulcet tones carry you off to dreamland. Our story begins not at the beginning, but at the end. The powerful sorceress, Ultimacia, the game's central antagonist, is a figure cloaked in shadow and mystery. Born generations after the events of Final Fantasy VIII, in a far future timeline, little is known about her early life and origins. What we do know is that Ultimacia's powers arose from an ancient magical force that has flowed through sorceresses across the ages. This force, while granting immense abilities, also has the potential to corrupt, twisting the hearts and minds of those who wield it. As Ultimacia's strength grew, so too did her hunger for ever greater power. In time, her ambitions turned to conquering not just her own world, but all of time itself. By reaching into the past to manipulate events, she sought to create a temporal loop, a never-ending cycle that would culminate in her own ascension as an omnipotent goddess. And yet, the very nature of time compression meant that her own past would be erased, her origins and identity lost to the ages. Such is the tragic irony of Ultimacia's tale, that in seeking to gain everything, she would lose all that made her who she was. As we drift deeper into the annals of history, keep in mind this haunting figure, looming like a spectre over all that is to come. Long before Ultimacia's rise, the world of Final Fantasy VIII was a place of magic and mystery. Sorceresses, women imbued with extraordinary powers, lived among the people, revered and feared in equal measure. Some used their gifts for good, healing the sick and aiding the needy. Others, drunk on their own strength, sowed chaos and destruction. It was in this age of unrest that the Sorceress War erupted. Led by the malevolent sorceress Adel, the nation of Esther launched a brutal campaign of conquest against its neighbors. Adel's powers seemed unstoppable, and soon entire kingdoms fell under her sway. But the people would not submit quietly to tyranny. A resistance emerged, rallying behind the charismatic leader, Laguna. With courage, cunning, and more than a little luck, Laguna and his allies managed to turn the tide, driving Adel back and ultimately imprisoning her in a specially constructed seal. The scars of the war ran deep, however, and in its aftermath, the nations of the world vowed never again to allow such devastation. The sorceresses who remained were regarded with suspicion and mistrust, forced into hiding, lest they become targets of persecution. And yet, as the wheels of fate continued to turn, the seeds sown in this conflict would bear bitter fruit in the years to come. One cannot tell the tale of the Sorceress War without speaking of Laguna, the man who would become a legend. Laguna's early life was one of carefree adventure. Fate, however, had other plans. Enlisting as a soldier in the Galbadian army, Laguna soon found himself embroiled in the escalating conflict with Esther. It was during a mission to the remote nation of Centra that he first encountered Sorceress Adel's forces, a harrowing battle that left him trapped behind enemy lines with his friends. But Laguna's innate charisma and quick thinking served him well. Befriending a young woman named Rain, he took refuge in Windhill, where over time the two fell in love. Though duty eventually called him away, Laguna promised to return to Rain and their newborn child. Alas, it was a promise left unfulfilled. As the Sorceress War reached its climax, Laguna found himself swept up in the tides of history, assuming leadership of the resistance against Adel. In the decades to come, his adventures would become the stuff of legend, told and retold in books, films, and song. And though he could never quite shake the guilt of his unfulfilled personal life, Laguna would remain a shining beacon of hope and heroism for generations. In the aftermath of the Sorceress War, the nations of the world recognized the need for a new kind of defense against the threat of rogue sorceresses. Thus were born Seed and the Gardens, elite military academies dedicated to training a new generation of warriors. Officially, Seed was a mercenary force, hiring out its services to the highest bidder. In truth, however, its mission was far more focused: to seek out and neutralize potential sorceress threats before they could spiral out of control. Only the most exceptional candidates were selected for training, subjected to rigorous physical and mental conditioning. The gardens themselves were marvels of technology and sorcery, mobile fortresses that could traverse land and sea. 3 such academies were established: Balam Garden, the most prestigious; Galbadia Garden, famed for its martial prowess; and Trabia Garden, renowned for its toughness and grit. Within their halls, countless young men and women forged unbreakable bonds of friendship and camaraderie. They studied military tactics and history, honed their weapons skills and magical abilities, all while grappling with the weighty responsibilities placed upon them. Little did they know that their greatest test was yet to come. Let's return to the story of Rain and Laguna. Rain was a woman of quiet strength and boundless compassion. Born and raised in the sleepy village of Winhill, she lived a simple life, tending to the needs of her community as the owner of the local pub. It was a peaceful existence, far removed from the turmoil of the Sorceress War that raged beyond Winhill's borders. All that changed, however, when a wounded soldier named Laguna stumbled into her life. Rain took the stranger in, nursing him back to health with gentle care and unwavering patience. As the days turned to weeks, a bond blossomed between them, a connection that transcended the boundaries of their different worlds. In Laguna, Rain found a kindred spirit, a man with a heart as big as his dreams, filled with a zest for life and an unshakable sense of justice. And in Rain, Laguna discovered a love unlike any he had ever known, a steadfast devotion that could weather any storm. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as though their happiness would last forever. But fate, as it so often does, had other plans in store. Laguna, driven by a sense of duty and a thirst for adventure, could not long remain in the quiet confines of Winhill. With a heavy heart, he bid farewell to his beloved Rain, promising to return to her and their newborn child as soon as his quest was complete. Alas, it was a promise he would never fulfill. As the Sorceress War reached its climax, Laguna found himself swept up in the tides of history, unable to return to the woman he loved. And Rain, left alone to raise their child, could only watch and wait, her heart heavy with the weight of unspoken goodbyes. Into this tapestry of love and loss, another thread was woven, that of Ilona, the young girl who would become Laguna and Rain's adopted daughter. Ilona's own story was one of tragedy and mystery, her origins shrouded in secrecy. Born with a rare and powerful gift, the ability to send a person's consciousness back in time, Elone was a child of great importance. The sorceress Adel, recognizing the potential of her abilities, sought to claim Elone for herself, to use her powers for her own nefarious ends. To protect her, Elone was spirited away from her home and family, hidden in the remote region of Centra. It was there, amidst the crumbling ruins of an ancient civilization, that Laguna and his comrades discovered her during a fateful mission. Moved by the young girl's plight, Laguna vowed to keep her safe, to shield her from the machinations of those who would exploit her gifts. A surrogate daughter to fill the void left by his absence from Rain and their own child. Under Rain's loving care, Elone blossomed, growing into a kind and gentle soul. The bond between her and Rain was a special one, transcending the boundaries of blood and circumstance. In Elone, Rain found solace and purpose, a reason to keep going, even as her heart ached for Laguna's return. Years passed, and Elone's powers grew stronger. She learned to harness her abilities, to walk in the dreams of others, and guide them through the labyrinth of their own memories. And yet, for all her gifts, she could not change the past, could not undo the tragedies that had shaped her life and the lives of those she loved. For Elone, the weight of her powers was a heavy burden to bear. She saw the pain and suffering of others, felt their joys and sorrows as her own. And in the quiet moments, when the world grew still and the ghosts of the past came calling, she could not help but wonder about the family she had lost, the mother and father she had never known. Rain, though her time was cut tragically short, lived on in the hearts of those who knew her. Her gentle spirit and unwavering compassion shaped the lives of all she touched, from the people of Windhill to the children she cared for. In the end, she was a true hero, a woman whose love and sacrifice knew no bounds. Laguna, for all his wanderlust and heroic deeds, never forgot the family he left behind. In the quiet moments, when the weight of the world seemed too much to bear, he would think of Rain and Elone, drawing strength from the memory of their love, and though he could not be with them in person, he carried them always in his heart, a constant reminder of what truly mattered. And Elone, the child of destiny, grew to become a woman of grace and wisdom. She bore the burden of her powers with quiet strength, using her gifts to help others and to keep the memory of her loved ones alive. In time, she would play a pivotal role in the events of Final Fantasy VIII, guiding the heroes on their journey and helping them to unravel the mysteries of the past. In the aftermath of the Sorceress War, Laguna found himself in a position he had never anticipated, as the leader of the technologically advanced nation of Este. It was a role he had never sought, but one that he embraced, with his characteristic energy and enthusiasm. As president, Laguna faced the daunting task of guiding Este through the challenges of the post-war era. The nation had long been isolated from the rest of the world, its advanced technology and insular culture setting it apart from its neighbors. But under Laguna's leadership, Este began to open up, forging new ties of trade and diplomacy with the other nations of the world. One of Laguna's first acts as president was to establish a new research institution, the Este Science Center. Its mission was to study the mysteries of sorcery and magic, to unlock the secrets of the sorceresses and find ways to protect the world from their potential threats. Laguna also worked to strengthen Este's ties with the Garden Academies. He saw the seeds as invaluable allies in the ongoing fight against the sorceresses, and he worked tirelessly to support and encourage their efforts. But for all his successes as president, Laguna never lost touch with his humble roots or his deep compassion for others. He was known to wander the streets of Esther in disguise, listening to the concerns and hopes of his people, and he never hesitated to lend a helping hand to those in need, whether it was a struggling family or a lost child. Under Laguna's leadership, Esther prospered and grew, becoming a beacon of hope and progress in a world still scarred by the wounds of war. And though the challenges he faced were great, Laguna faced them with the same courage, determination, and unfailing optimism that had defined his entire life. One of the greatest joys of Laguna's life during his time as president was his reunion with his beloved, adopted daughter, Elone. The two had been separated for years. But now, with Adel defeated and Esther at peace, Laguna and Elone were finally reunited. It was a moment of pure happiness for Laguna, a chance to reconnect with the little girl he had loved and raised as his own. And yet, even as he celebrated this reunion, Laguna could not help but feel a sense of bitter sweetness. For he knew that there was another child out there, a son he had never had the chance to know. Squall was the child Laguna had fathered with Rain, the love of his life, before duty had called him away to fight in the Sorceress War. Laguna had always intended to return to Win Hill and his family, but fate had intervened, and he had never had the chance. Now, as president of Esther, Laguna finally had the resources and the means to search for his lost son, and search he did tirelessly and relentlessly, driven by the hope of one day being able to hold his child in his arms. That day finally came during the tumultuous events surrounding Ultimatia's rise and defeat. As Squall and his companions battled the sorceress across time and space, Laguna learned the truth of his son's identity, and in a moment of bittersweet reunion, father and son finally met. In the years following the defeat of Ultimatia, Laguna stepped down as president of Esther, passing the reins of leadership to a new generation. But he never truly retired, remaining a vital and beloved figure in the life of his nation and the world. Laguna devoted himself to his family, spending long-awaited time with Elone and getting to know the son he had lost for so long. He regaled them with tales of his adventures, his laughter and love filling the halls of the presidential palace. He also continued to work tirelessly for the causes he believed in, championing the rights of the oppressed and downtrodden, and working to build a world of peace and understanding. He traveled the globe, meeting with leaders and ordinary people alike, his easygoing charm and indomitable spirit winning him friends and admirers wherever he went. And as the years passed, Laguna's legacy only grew. He came to be seen as a symbol of hope and resilience, a man who had faced the darkest of times and emerged unbroken and unbowed. His name was spoken with reverence and affection, not just in Esther but across the world, a testament to the enduring impact of his life and work. In his later years, Laguna could often be found in the quiet of his garden, tending to his beloved flowers and reflecting on the twists and turns of his remarkable life. And though the passage of time had slowed his step and silvered his hair, his eyes never lost their sparkle, nor his heart its capacity for love and laughter. Let's now turn our attention to three other key figures from before that turbulent time: Kiros Siegel, Ward Zabak, and Dr. Odin. Each of these characters, in their own way, left an indelible mark on the course of history, and their stories are woven deep into the tapestry of the game's mythology. First, let us speak of Kiros, a man whose name is synonymous with loyalty and friendship. Born in the bustling city of Daling, Kiros grew up alongside his best friend, Ward Zabak. The two were inseparable from a young age, their bond forged through countless shared adventures and trials. As they came of age, Kiros and Ward both enlisted in the Galbadian military, eager to prove their mettle and see the world beyond their hometown. It was during this time that they first met Laguna. The three quickly became fast friends, their camaraderie unbreakable even in the face of danger and adversity. Kiros, in particular, took on the role of the level-headed strategist in their little group. Where Laguna was impulsive and Ward was stoic, Kiros provided a voice of reason and calm. His quick thinking and tactical acumen saved their lives on more than one occasion, earning him a reputation as a soldier of exceptional skill and intelligence. And when their journey led them to the remote village of Winhill, where Laguna found love with a young woman named Rain, Kiros stood by his friend's side, even as the winds of war began to blow once more. In the end, Kiros's unwavering devotion to his friends would be put to the ultimate test. As the Sorceress War reached its climax and Laguna was called to lead the resistance against the tyrannical Adel, Kiros was there, fighting alongside him every step of the way. And when the dust finally settled and peace returned to the world, Kiros remained at Laguna's side, a constant reminder of the unbreakable bonds of friendship that had carried them through their darkest hours. Next, we turn to Ward Zabak, the gentle giant, a man whose imposing stature belied a heart of gold. Ward was a native of Daling City, born into a family of modest means. From a young age, he was known for his incredible strength and size, towering over his peers even as a child. But despite his intimidating appearance, Ward was a gentle soul. He had a deep love for nature and a profound respect for all living things. As a soldier, he fought bravely and fiercely, but always with the goal of protecting the innocent and defending those who could not defend themselves. It was this compassion that drew him to Laguna and Kiros, two kindred spirits who shared his sense of justice and his desire to make the world a better place. Together, the three friends embarked on countless adventures, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. But Ward's story took a tragic turn during a fateful mission to the remote nation of Centra. There, while fighting alongside Laguna and Kiros against Sorceress Adel's forces, Ward was gravely injured, his throat slashed by an enemy blade. Though he survived the attack, he was left unable to speak, his voice forever silenced. For a lesser man, such a blow might have been the end, but Ward refused to let his injury define him. With the help of his friends, he adapted to his new reality, learning to communicate through gestures and facial expressions. And when the call came to join the resistance against Adel, Ward did not hesitate, fighting with a ferocity and determination that inspired all those around him. In the years that followed, Ward would become a legend in his own right. He was a symbol of strength and resilience, a living reminder that even the greatest of challenges could be overcome with courage and perseverance. And though he never regained his voice, his actions spoke louder than any words ever could, a testament to the unbreakable spirit of a true hero. Finally, we come to Dr. Odin, a figure cloaked in mystery and intrigue. Little is known about Odin's early life or origins, save that he was a brilliant scientist with an unparalleled knowledge of sorcery and magic. Some say he was born in the futuristic nation of Esther, while others claim he hailed from a distant world altogether. What is certain is that Odin played a pivotal role in the events of the Sorceress War. As the world's foremost expert on sorcery, he was recruited by Sorceress Adel to aid in her nefarious schemes. Under Adel's command, Odin conducted twisted experiments and dark rituals, pushing the boundaries of science and magic in his relentless pursuit of knowledge and power. But even as he served Adel, Odin was plotting his own agenda. He became fascinated with the young girl, Elone, recognizing in her the potential for a power greater than any he had ever seen. Odin believed that by harnessing Elone's ability to send a person's consciousness back in time, he could unlock the secrets of immortality and godhood. To that end, Odin betrayed Adel, helping the resistance to capture and imprison the sorceress in exchange for custody of Elone. But Laguna and his allies saw through Odin's machinations, spiriting Elone away to safety before the mad scientist could lay his hands on her. In the aftermath of the war, Odin retreated to his laboratories in Esther, continuing his deranged experiments in secret. He became a figure of legend and fear, whispered about in hushed tones as a man who had delved too deep into the forbidden arts. And yet, for all his madness, Odin's genius was undeniable. His research into sorcery and magic would have far-reaching consequences, laying the groundwork for the rise of Seed and the Gardens. And when the time came to confront the threat of Ultimacia, it was Odin's knowledge and inventions that would prove key to defeating the sorceress once and for all. Let us turn to Seed. At its core, Seed is a mercenary organization, providing military services to the highest bidder, but to dismiss them as mere hired guns would be a grave mistake. Seed's true purpose is far nobler: to serve as a line of defense against the potential threat of rogue sorceresses. The organization is divided into several ranks, each with its own responsibilities and privileges. At the bottom are the cadets, the aspiring seeds who have yet to prove their mettle. Above them are the seed officers, the elite soldiers who have passed the grueling entrance exam and earned their place in the organization's ranks. Leading Seed are the Garden Masters, the most experienced and skilled of the elite. These seasoned warriors serve as instructors, mentors, and commanders, guiding the next generation of Seeds in the ways of combat and strategy. But Seed is more than just a military hierarchy. It is a tightly knit community, bound together by a shared sense of purpose and camaraderie. The bonds forged between Seeds are unbreakable, transcending mere friendship to become something akin to family. This is no accident, but rather a deliberate feature of Seed's design. The organization recognizes that in the heat of battle, it is not just skill and training that make the difference between victory and defeat, but also the strength of the connections between comrades. By fostering a deep sense of loyalty and trust among its members, Seed ensures that its soldiers will fight not just for a paycheck, but for each other. But what does it take to become a member of this elite force? The path to becoming a Seed is not an easy one, but rather a grueling gauntlet of physical, mental, and emotional trials. It begins in the gardens, the sprawling academies, where aspiring Seeds hone their skills and knowledge. The curriculum is broad and demanding, covering everything from martial arts and weapons training to history, science, and diplomacy. Cadets are expected to master a dizzying array of subjects, from the intricacies of junctioning magic to the art of espionage and infiltration. But the true test of a seed's mettle comes in the form of the field exam, a grueling mission that pits the cadets against real-world threats and challenges. It is here that the years of training and preparation are put to the ultimate test, as the aspiring seeds must demonstrate not just their individual skills, but their ability to work together as a team. Those who pass the field exam are awarded the coveted rank of Seed, a badge of honor that marks them as one of the world's elite soldiers. But the training does not end there. Seeds are expected to continue honing their skills and knowledge throughout their careers, constantly pushing themselves to new heights of excellence. This dedication to lifelong learning and improvement is one of the keys to Seed's success as an organization. By ensuring that its soldiers are always at the top of their game, Seed maintains its reputation as the world's premier military force. But the training of Seed goes beyond mere academics and drills. The organization also places a heavy emphasis on psychological conditioning, preparing its soldiers for the emotional and mental strain of combat. Through a combination of meditation, therapy, and other techniques, Seeds are taught to master their emotions, to remain calm and focused, even in the face of overwhelming odds. They learn to compartmentalize their fears and doubts, to push past the natural human instinct for self-preservation in service of a higher cause. The result is a fighting force like no other, a cadre of soldiers who are not just physically and intellectually gifted, but emotionally resilient and unwaveringly loyal. It's this combination of qualities that makes Seed truly exceptional. But Seed is more than just an organization. It is an ideal, a shining beacon of hope in a world beset by darkness and uncertainty. And nowhere is this more evident than in the gardens themselves. These towering structures, with their gleaming spires and lush greenery, are more than just military academies. They are symbols of the indomitable human spirit, of the refusal to bow before the forces of chaos and destruction. In the halls of the gardens, young men and women from all walks of life come together, united by a common purpose and a shared dream. They study and train, forging bonds of friendship and camaraderie that will last a lifetime. And when the time comes, they stand ready to defend the world against the threat of the Sorceresses, to lay down their lives in service of a greater good. This is the true power of Seed and the Gardens, not just their military might, but their ability to inspire hope and courage in the hearts of all who behold them. Much of the power of the Seed came from Guardian Forces, or GFs. These are mysterious and powerful entities that exist within the world of Final Fantasy VIII. On a superficial level, they function as summonable creatures that can aid the player's party in battle, providing a range of potent offensive and defensive abilities. But the true nature of the GFs is far more complex and intriguing. According to the game's lore, GFs are actually sentient beings with their own thoughts, personalities, and desires. They are not mere beasts or automatons, but highly evolved creatures with a profound connection to the fabric of reality itself. The origins of the GFs are shrouded in mystery, but it is hinted that they are in some way related to the ancient civilization of Centra, which was destroyed thousands of years before the events of the game. The Centrans were said to have possessed advanced technology and arcane knowledge, and it is possible that the GFs were created or discovered by them. One of the most fascinating and unsettling aspects of the GFs is their effect on human memory. It is revealed during the course of the game that prolonged use of GFs can can lead to memory loss, as the GF's presence in a person's mind can gradually erode their own memories and experiences. This revelation casts a dark shadow over the use of GFs by Seed and the Gardens, suggesting that the very power that enables them to fight against the Sorceresses may also be slowly stripping away their identities and humanity. It is a profound ethical dilemma, one that the game's characters grapple with as they uncover more about the true nature of the GFs. The use of GFs is a relatively recent development in the history of Final Fantasy VIII's world. Prior to the emergence of these organizations, GFs were largely unknown or misunderstood, seen as mythical beasts or dangerous monsters. It was only through the pioneering work of Sid Kramer, the founder of Balam Garden, that the potential of GFs as allies and weapons was fully realized. Sid had long been fascinated by the legends of the Centran civilization and the mysterious entities said to slumber within their ruins. Through a combination of archaeological exploration, arcane research, and bold experimentation, Sid was able to develop a means of communicating with and summoning GFs. He discovered that by forming a mental link with these creatures, humans could call upon their power in times of need, channeling their abilities through specialized weapons and equipment. Sid recognized the immense potential of this discovery, not just as a means of self-defense, but as a weapon in the ongoing struggle against the threat of the Sorceresses. He envisioned an elite fighting force, trained in the use of GFs and dedicated to protecting the world from magical tyranny. Thus, Seed and the Gardens were born, with the use of GFs as a cornerstone of their military and educational practices. Aspiring Seed cadets were taught to junction with GFs as part of their training, learning to harness their power and form deep bonds with these enigmatic entities. But even as Gardens embraced the use of GFs, there were those who warned of the potential dangers. Some worried about the long-term effects of GF use on the human mind, fearing that the price of power may be the loss of self. Others saw the GFs as unpredictable and potentially treacherous allies, wondering if they could truly be trusted to serve human interests. Despite these concerns, the use of GFs by Seed and the Gardens only grew over time, becoming an integral part of their identity and capabilities. The GFs became more than just tools or weapons. They were companions and partners, entities with whom the Seed members formed deep and complex relationships. The role of GFs in Final Fantasy VIII is deeply entwined with the game's central themes of memory, identity, and the nature of the self. The revelation that GF use can lead to memory loss serves as a powerful metaphor for the ways in which our experiences and relationships shape who we are. Just as Squall and his companions must grapple with the gradual erosion of their own memories, so too must they confront the question of what truly defines a person. Is identity simply the sum of one's memories and experiences? Or is there some essential core of self that endures beyond the vagaries of time and circumstance? The GFs also serve as a symbol of the double-edged nature of power and technology. Just as the advanced abilities granted by the GFs come at the cost of memory and potentially even selfhood, so too do the technological marvels of the game's world often conceal hidden dangers and ethical quandaries. In the end, the story of the GFs in Final Fantasy VIII is a cautionary tale about the risks and responsibilities of wielding great power. It is a reminder that even the most noble goals and intentions can have unintended consequences, and that the pursuit of strength and knowledge must always be tempered by wisdom and empathy. Let us speak more on the Sorceresses. To understand the myths and legends surrounding sorceresses, we must first delve into the origins of sorcery itself. According to ancient tales, The power of magic was first bestowed upon humans by the great Hein, a powerful deity who created the world and all its inhabitants. The legend goes that Hein, in his infinite wisdom, decided to share a portion of his power with his creations. He chose a select few individuals, all women, and granted them the ability to wield magic. These women became the first sorceresses, the progenitors of a lineage that would stretch across the centuries. But Hein's gift was not without its price. The power of sorcery was a double-edged sword, granting immense strength, but also the potential for great destruction. And as the sorceresses began to pass their powers down through the generations, the risk of that power, falling into the wrong hands, grew ever greater. Thus, the stage was set for countless tales of sorceresses throughout history, some noble and heroic, others dark and twisted. These stories would become the stuff of legend, shaping the beliefs and attitudes of people across the world of Final Fantasy VIII. The Great Hein features prominently in many myths and legends about sorceresses. According to some tales, Hein was a benevolent figure, a wise and loving god, who granted the gift of magic as a boon to his favored creations. Other legends paint a darker picture. They speak of Hein as a capricious and cruel deity, one who delighted in sowing chaos and suffering among mortals. Some even suggest that the sorceresses were not a gift at all, but a curse, a way for Hein to punish humanity for some long-forgotten transgression. Regardless of their portrayal of Hein, these legends all agree on one thing: the immense power that the god bestowed upon the sorceresses. They speak of women who could command the elements, who could heal the sick and raise the dead, who could bend time and space to their will. These tales served as a testament to the awe and reverence that people held for the sorceresses, as well as the fear and mistrust that their powers could inspire. They also helped to establish the sorceresses as figures of myth and mystery, women whose true natures were shrouded in secrecy and speculation. As the power of sorcery spread throughout the world, so too did the potential for conflict and strife. The annals of history are filled with tales of the sorceress wars, great battles waged between nations and factions for control of the sorceresses and their magic. Some of these wars were fought for noble causes, with brave heroes rising up to defend the innocent against the tyranny of evil sorceresses. One such legend tells of a great warrior queen who led her people against a corrupt sorceress who had enslaved their kingdom. Through bravery and sacrifice, the queen and her allies vanquished the sorceress and freed her people from oppression. Other tales are more tragic, speaking of sorceresses driven to madness and destruction by the weight of their own power. One particularly haunting legend tells of two sister sorceresses, once inseparable, who were torn apart by jealousy and ambition. Their rivalry escalated into a cataclysmic battle that laid waste to entire cities and claimed countless innocent lives. Still other stories speak of sorceresses who used their powers for good, healing the sick, sheltering the weak, and standing as beacons of hope in a world beset by darkness. These tales served as reminders that for all the fear and mistrust that surrounded the sorceresses, they were still human, capable of both great good and great evil. One of the most enduring legends of the sorceresses is that of Vascaroon, a powerful mage who lived centuries before the events of Final Fantasy VIII. According to the tale, Vascaroon was a man of immense magical talent, but he was also possessed of a dark and twisted soul. Vascaroon became obsessed with the idea of living forever, of transcending the bounds of mortal existence through the power of sorcery. He conducted unspeakable experiments, delving into forbidden magics in his relentless pursuit of immortality. The legend says that Vascaroon ultimately succeeded in his goal, but at a terrible cost. His body withered and decayed, leaving him a grotesque shell of his former self, and his mind, warped by the dark magics he had embraced, descended into madness. According to the tale, Vascaroon still lives to this day, lurking in the shadows and pulling the strings of fate. He is said to be the mastermind behind many of the worst sorceress wars, manipulating events from behind the scenes in service of his own inscrutable goals. While the truth of this legend is debatable, it serves as a powerful cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the corrupting influence of power. It is a reminder that even the greatest of gifts can be twisted to dark ends if one is not careful. Let us speak on the politics and wars spread across the world of Final Fantasy VIII. One of the key players in this political dance was the nation of Galbadia. Prior to the war, Galbadia had been a relatively minor power, overshadowed by its larger and more influential neighbors. But the conflict had changed everything. Under the leadership of the ambitious and ruthless president Vinzer Daling, Galbadia had emerged as a major military force, one that had played a key role in the defeat of the sorceress Adel. In the aftermath of the war, Daling was quick to capitalize on his nation's newfound prominence, asserting Galbadia's interests on the world stage with a mix of diplomacy and veiled threats. At the heart of Galbadia's strategy was a program of aggressive expansion and modernization. Daling poured vast resources into the development of Galbadia's infrastructure and industry, transforming the once sleepy nation into a bustling hub of activity. At the same time, he continued to build up Galbadia's military, focusing particularly on the development of advanced weapons and technology. These moves did not go unnoticed by Galbadia's neighbors, who viewed the nation's rise with a mix of envy and trepidation. Some, like the technologically advanced city-state of Esther, saw Galbadia as a potential rival, one that could threaten their own interests in the region. Others, like the small but fiercely independent nation of Timber, saw Galbadia as a bully and an oppressor, one that sought to dominate and control its weaker neighbors. The tensions between Galbadia and Timber were particularly acute. For decades, Timber had been a reluctant satellite of Galbadia, its people chafing under the yoke of foreign occupation. The Sorceress War had given the Timber resistance a brief glimmer of hope, a chance to throw off the shackles of oppression and assert their independence. But Daling was not about to let Timber slip from his grasp so easily. In the aftermath of the war, he moved quickly to reassert Galbadia's control over the restive nation, dispatching troops to quell any signs of rebellion and imposing harsh penalties on those who dared to resist. This only served to inflame the passions of the Timber resistance, who saw Daling's actions as a cruel and unjust attempt to crush their dreams of freedom. They responded with a campaign of sabotage and guerrilla warfare, striking at Galbadian targets and then melting away into the forests and mountains of their homeland. For Daling, the Timber resistance was a thorn in his side, a constant reminder of the limits of his power and the fragility of his control. He responded with ever greater brutality, launching raids and reprisals against suspected rebel strongholds and tightening his grip on the nation's institutions and resources. But for all his efforts, Daling could not quell the spirit of the timber resistance. They continued to fight, even as their numbers dwindled and their hopes faded, sustained by the belief that one day they would be free. The tensions between Galbadia and Timber were just one example of the political intrigue that gripped the world in the aftermath of the Sorceress War. Another flashpoint was the small duchy of Dolet, a coastal nation that had long been a pawn in the games of its larger neighbours. Dolet's strategic location and rich resources made it a tempting prize for Galbadia, which saw the duchy as a potential stepping stone to greater power and influence in the region. Daling began to apply pressure on Dolet's rulers, using a combination of economic incentives and military threats to try to bring the duchy under Galbadian control. But Dolet was not without its own allies and defenders. The nation had long-standing ties to the Garden Academies, particularly Blam Garden, which saw Dolet as a key strategic partner in the fight against the Sorceresses. As Galbadia's pressure on Dolet intensified, the Garden leadership began to take notice. They saw Daling's actions as a direct threat to their own interests, as well as a potential prelude to a larger conflict that could engulf the entire region. Tensions came to a head when Galbadian forces launched a surprise attack on Dolet, seeking to seize control of the duchy's critical communication tower. The attack was met with fierce resistance from Dolet's defenders, as well as a contingent of seed mercenaries who had been hired to protect the duchy's interests. The resulting battle was brief but intense, a clash of arms and wills that pitted the technological might of Galbadia against the skill and determination of the seeds. In the end, the Galbadian forces were repelled, but not before inflicting significant damage on Dolet's infrastructure and defenses. The incident served as a stark reminder of the fragility of the post-war order and the ever-present threat of renewed conflict. It also highlighted the growing tensions between Galbadia and the Garden Academies, a rivalry that would have far-reaching consequences for the future of the world. Let's turn our attention to one of the primary antagonists of Final Fantasy VIII, Edea Kramer, a powerful and ruthless sorceress who seeks to bend the world to her will. But as we delve deeper into her story, we discover that the truth is far more complex. Edea's origins are shrouded in mystery, but what we do know is that she was born with the natural ability to use magic. As a young woman, she was taken in by Dr. Odin, the brilliant but morally questionable scientist who sought to harness the power of the sorceresses for his own ends. Under Odin's tutelage, Edea's powers grew, as did her understanding of the nature of sorcery. But even as she honed her craft, Edea could not shake a growing sense of unease, a feeling that the path she was on was leading her towards a dark and dangerous place. It was during this time that Edea met Sid Kramer, a young soldier who had been assigned to guard her as part of Odin's research team. The two fell in love, and in Sid, Edea found a new purpose, a reason to use her powers for good. Together, Edea and Sid left Odin's facility and struck out on their own. They founded an orphanage on the remote Centra continent, a place where they could provide a safe haven for children who had been orphaned or displaced by the ongoing conflicts that plagued their world. For a time, Edea and Sid knew happiness, watching as the children under their care grew and thrived. But even in this idyllic setting, the spectre of sorcery continued to haunt Edea. She knew that her powers made her a target, and that there were those who would stop at nothing to possess her abilities for themselves. This fear was realized when the sorceress Ultimacia, a being from the far future, began to exert her influence on Edea's mind. Ultimacia sought to use Edea as a vessel, a means to extend her power into the past and reshape history to her own ends. Under Ultimatia's control, Edea was forced to commit terrible acts, attacking the very garden academies she and Cid had helped to create. She became a figure of fear and hatred, a sorceress, seemingly bent on destruction and domination. But even in her darkest moments, Edea's true self remained, fighting against Ultimatia's control. And when the heroes of the game, led by Squall, finally confronted her, Edea was able to break free, to reassert her own will and identity. In the aftermath of these events, Edea chose to renounce her powers, to ensure that they could never again be used for evil. She returned to her life with Cid, finding peace and redemption in the simple joys of love and family. In contrast, the sorceress Adel was a figure of unambiguous evil, a tyrant who ruled the nation of Esther with an iron fist and a thirst for conquest. Adel's origins are lost to history, but it is said that she first rose to power during a time of great upheaval and strife in Esther. Through a combination of sorcery, charisma, and sheer ruthlessness, Adel was able to seize control of the nation, bending its people and resources to her will. Under Adel's rule, Esther was transformed into a military powerhouse, a nation focused solely on the expansion of its own power and influence. Adel herself became a figure of terror, her very name inspiring fear and dread in the hearts of her enemies. But Adel's hunger for power was insatiable, and soon her gaze turned beyond the borders of Esther. She launched a series of brutal campaigns against neighboring nations, using her sorcery to crush any resistance and expand her dominion. It was during this time that Adel became obsessed with the young girl, Elone, who possessed the unique ability to send a person's consciousness back in time. Adel saw in Elone the key to ultimate power, a means to reshape history itself to her own design. Adel's obsession with Elone would prove to be her downfall. The heroes of the game, led by Laguna, launched a daring mission to rescue Elone and put an end to Adel's tyranny. In a climactic battle, Adel was defeated, her powers stripped away, and her reign of terror brought to an end. But even in defeat, Adel's legacy would live on. Her cruelty and ambition had left deep scars on the psyche of Esther, and the nation would spend years struggling to rebuild and redefine itself in the wake of her rule. At the heart of Final Fantasy VIII's story is a fascinatingly complex and paradoxical conception of time. On the surface, time appears to flow in a linear fashion, with events unfolding in a straightforward cause and effect manner. But as we delve deeper, we discover that the reality is far more intricate. The game introduces the concept of time compression, a process by which all of time, past, present, and future, is collapsed into a single moment. This is the ultimate goal of the sorceress Ultimatia, who seeks to create a world without time, where she can reign supreme for eternity. But what does it actually mean to compress time in this way? According to the game's lore, time compression involves the merging of all temporal eras into a single, unified existence. In this state, the boundaries between past, present, and future break down, allowing individuals to move freely across the time stream. This concept is mind-bending in its implications. If all of time is compressed into a single moment, then everything that has ever happened, is happening, or will happen, is occurring simultaneously. Every event, every decision, every possibility, all of it coexists in a single, infinite now. The game explores this idea through the use of time loops, cyclical patterns of events that repeat endlessly across the compressed time stream. The most notable of these is the Ultimatia loop, in which the sorceress's actions in the future set in motion the very events that lead to her own creation in the past. This loop is a perfect example of the paradoxical nature of time compression. Ultimatia's existence is both the cause and the result of her own actions, a self-fulfilling prophecy that defies linear causality. And yet, within the context of a compressed time stream, such paradoxes are not only possible, but inevitable. The concept of time compression also raises profound questions about the nature of destiny and free will. If all of time is happening at once, then what does it mean to make a choice? Are our actions truly our own, or are they simply inevitable outcomes of a predetermined pattern? Final Fantasy VIII grapples with these questions through the stories of its characters, particularly that of Squall Leonhardt, the game's protagonist. Throughout the game, Squall is presented with a series of seemingly impossible choices, moments where the fate of the world hangs in the balance. And yet, as we learn more about the nature of time compression, we begin to realize that these choices may be little more than an illusion. If all outcomes already exist simultaneously within the compressed time stream, then Squall's decisions are not really shaping the future, but merely selecting one possible path from an infinite array. This idea is reinforced by the game's emphasis on predestination and cyclical patterns. Many of the game's key events, such as the Sorceress War and the rise of Ultimatia, are presented as inevitable outcomes, fated to occur regardless of individual actions. And yet, even in the face of this apparent determinism, the game still celebrates the power of human will and the importance of personal choice. Squall and his companions may be caught in the gears of a vast temporal machine, but they still strive to make their own decisions, to fight for what they believe in. In the end, perhaps the message of Final Fantasy VIII is that destiny and free will are not mutually exclusive, but rather two sides of the same coin. We may be shaped by forces beyond our control, but it is still up to us to decide how we respond to those forces, to find meaning and purpose in the face of an uncertain universe. At the climax of Final Fantasy VIII, Ultimatia's plan to compress time finally comes to fruition. Using the combined power of all the sorceresses throughout history, she's able to collapse the time stream into a single moment, creating her long-sought world without time. But what would such a world actually be like? The game offers some tantalizing glimpses, but ultimately leaves much to the imagination. We see a realm where past, present, and future blend together seamlessly, where individuals can move freely across the eras of history. And yet, for all its apparent power, Ultimatia's compressed world is also a deeply unstable one. Without the linear flow of time to provide structure and continuity, reality itself begins to break down. Memories, identities, and even physical forms start to blur and merge as the boundaries between individuals dissolve. In many ways, Ultimatia's time compression can be seen as a metaphor for the ultimate fate of all things, a return to the primordial unity that existed before the emergence of time and space. It is a world without distinction or separation, a realm of pure potentiality where all possibilities coexist. But it is also a world without meaning or purpose, a static and sterile existence where nothing can grow or change. By seeking to escape the flow of time, Ultimatia ultimately traps herself in a prison of her own making, a world without hope or future. In the end, it is only through the actions of Squall and his companions that the timeline is restored, that the flow of past, present, and future is allowed to resume its natural course. Their struggle can be seen as a metaphor for the eternal human drive to find meaning and purpose in the face of an indifferent universe, to assert our own will and agency in the face of forces beyond our control. And so, dear listener, we come to the end of our exploration of time, destiny, and the profound implications of Ultimatia's time compression in Final Fantasy VIII. These are complex and weighty topics, the kind that have haunted the imaginations of thinkers and dreamers for generations. But perhaps, in the end, the true lesson of Final Fantasy VIII is not to be found in any grand philosophical theory, but in the simple, enduring power of human connection and love. Squall and his companions may be small and insignificant in the face of the vast machinations of time, but through their bonds with each other, they are able to find the strength to keep fighting, to keep hoping for a better tomorrow. And so, as we drift off to sleep, let us hold fast to that lesson. Let us cherish the people in our lives, the moments of joy and sorrow that we share with them. For in the end, it is these connections that give our fleeting existence meaning, that allow us to leave a lasting mark on the tapestry of time. Good night, dear listener, and may your dreams be filled with the warmth of love and the light of hope. For as long as we have each other, no power in the universe can truly defeat us.